Jehovah acknowledges that at the beginning of his garden, he made his own man, dude, or Adam, and reconfirming Elohim's male and female were already running around multiplying in Genesis 1. Genesis 2:5, and every plant of the field before it was on the earth, every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. And the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. To clarify, the code in the book. And the first thing is to understand the code. To know the warrior, one must know the code and identify the kind of man the book is speaking to, and also which God. In the book, there are many gods, and they have names. Exodus 23, thou shalt have no other gods. It doesn't say don't have no other God. It said don't have any other gods. That's in the plural. It is impossible to interpret the Bible without first the Spirit, secondly the code. The code in its simplest and most basic form is to identify what type of man, person, or God is being referred to in the Word. As it is plain and simple, Jesus, the first of two Adams, are different types of men and women. You and I are like Cain, the firstborn of the womb. In the book, if it says a man built an ark, or a man had a wife, one must identify what type of man the word is referring to. As there is a huge difference between Adam, a man, a dude, begotten by an angelic, and his son Cain, who was born of the womb, had no parents, had two parents, Adam and Eve, Example, I heard a knock at my front door one night late. I sent my child to the front door. The child came back and said mankind is at the front door. I sent the child back to get mankind's name. If she came back and said Bin Laden was standing at the front door, I wouldn't want and got a shotgun. If she said it was Kirk, my next door neighbor, it required a different response. When I was a child long ago, my parents thumbed through a book of names and decided John was a good name, and it was number 727 in a book of names. My brother Dan, having the word D in his name, was number 310 in the book of names. My parents, rather than refer to me or my brother as mankind, son, or dude, called us by our name, Johnny or Danny. If you were to refer to the code of the book, you could say instead of Johnny, 727 in the book of names is on his bicycle, and if Danny was climbing a tree, you could say 310 is climbing a tree. You could actually call us by the number of our name in a book. Now let's apply the code to understand the book and which man or God is referring to. You can do that by name or number, as each word in the book called the word has a number. The Hebrew dictionary has like 14,000 words in it. Each word has a number. First, look at the first man who was begotten and identified as word number 120, Adam, in the Hebrew dictionary, and compare him to the first man, Cain, born of the womb, and he is identified with a different name, and number 376 is considered Eish. Also, note Adam as mankind in the plural and Adam as a fellow named Adam in the singular have the same meaning, word number 120. So the first race of men called man were named Adam. The code. Read the book. Look at the words, just like if you looked at Johnny and you looked at Danny in the book of names. They got a different number. Use the code. The plural for mankind, word number 120, Adam, a race of men begotten. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Now in the concordance, which is a dialogue and a book that puts the Hebrew on one side and the English on the next, and a number next to it, says that that's Strong's number 120, and that's Adam. So let us make Adam in Hebrew, let us make Adam in our image after our likeness. Now in the singular, Adam is the same word number 120, the second man a fellow out of the garden, and out of the ground the Jehovah, Lord, formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. Adam in the singular is a dude named Adam. Adam in the plural represent a race of people. Next, compare Cain, who was born of the womb, who is identified as Eish for man. That's word number 376. Hebrew is Eish. He goes by man in the book because when they wrote the book, they just put man. And the code says find out if it's 120 or 376. 120 is a dude that was begotten by an angelic. He's got no parents. Number 376 is Eish. He's got a mom and dad. Genesis 4:1, and Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man. In this case, she should have said in Hebrew, I have gotten an Eish, a number 376 from the Jehovah Lord. So we now have two types of men running around on Mother Earth. Number one, Adam. Word number 120, a race of men and women without parents made by an angelic. And then number two, Eish, number 376, men and women born of the womb through conception. Study the code, read the book, and apply the code. Find out who's at your front door. There is a big difference between Bin Laden and my next door neighbor, Kirk, on a tractor. The reason a Bible thumper uses the King James Version of the Bible, it is the only version taken off the Hebrew scroll and refers to the Hebrew dictionary for each word. Other versions are interpretations by man and do not have a concordance linked to the Hebrew dictionary. A good search engine will show the Hebrew word next to the English, and the thumper, the Bible thumper, relies on the Spirit which reveals the code. There is no doubt that two different types of human beings are roaming around the planet here. The Bible does not need a person to rewrite the words. What is needed is a person to study the word through definition, through word phrases. Jesus does not need us to run to a building or a man to bless us to speak to our heart, and the same is true in the book. To know the last Adam, Jesus, is to understand who an Adam is. To know Jesus, the last Adam, is to know the warrior, the quickened spirit. And to understand men born of the womb is to identify them properly in the book. From this point forward, I would hope that you will always establish what kind of man or God the book is talking about. One of the 10 Commandments is, there shall be no other gods before me. Period. They said it, not me. As man is not always the same type of fellow, it is also important to identify which God the book is referring to. Jesus said, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. So the last Adam, Jesus, is from the Father, who is Father El. The first two Adams did not say, if you have seen me, you have seen my Father. And the Father also said, I only made one Adam, my only begotten Son, the last Adam, my only begotten Son. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. In addition, Adam, mankind, the second Adam, begotten of Jehovah, died and did not rise from the dead. Genesis 5:4, and all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. He's done. The first two Adams are not from Father El, as he said, my only begotten Son. And that was the last Adam, Jesus, who was quickened into the spiritual realm and sits on a white horse waiting for the final battle when the beast, false prophet, and Satan are thrown into the lake of fire. Revelation 20:10. In love, this morning on the way here to meet up with Terry here in his studio, I saw a lady sitting at a bus stop, and she was all covered up and her whole life was at her feet. And I drove a little ways. I said, I'm going to give that girl some money. Drove a little ways. I better turn around, go back and give her some money and see if I can comfort her and tell her that she's loved. So I hung a U-turn in my Porsche. I got $50 out of my wallet, and it's not the $50 and it's not the Porsche. It's the fact that I had it and I'm blessed. And I went back and I went up to her and I said, how you doing? She said, I'm just fine, young man. I said, would you take this and bless me? And she took that $50 and she lit up. I got in my car and I kept going. Ladies and gentlemen, that made me feel good. That is what love is. This book is a horror story from cover to cover. Sex, violence, incest, gods, false Christ, false religions, all of these religions, all of this stuff. So let me give you the good news. A guy comes as a peasant at the end from sky heaven. He said, forget the commandments, forget the laws, forget the rules, forget all the stuff. Do one thing for me. Love one another.